listening to the Necropolis podcast, which is brought to you by Jason from Goatcraft and Shelly from HateMeditations.com and Metal Legion magazine. Welcome to Necropolis. We are back in action after a little hiatus. Job had been quite demanding with a lot of windshield time, and eventually they did allow me to get some rest with some hybrid work. So I am well rested now. So hopefully I don't stutter and step on myself and et cetera, et cetera. But it's been a couple crazy months, trying to get my everything in order. But we do have a great episode for you today, and we have someone I personally know rather well. We have Brian Malone from the band Shadow Legion. Thank you, Brian, for coming on.
Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
So a lot of people may be familiar with Brian. Brian was the lead guitarist of the band Diabolic, which was they made a lot of waves in the early 2000s, late 90s, kind of riffing on like the style that Morbid Angel had, but making it a little bit more accessible. But what really stood out in Diabolic were the leads. There were some like really cool groove types of riffing in there too, and kind of abstract, takes on the Morbid Angel formula. And they were like latecomers, and when you're considering like the Tampa scene with the death metal greats coming out in the 80s and all that. But Diabolic, they definitely etched their name pretty firmly into the death metal pantheon. And with that, Brian's guitar work came to the forefront and just, completely just took the world by storm for a while there. And I personally have viewed him as being one of the best lead guitarists in extreme metal. So it's a great pleasure to have him on today. So his new band, Shadow Legion, they just came off their debut album, which is eponymously titled Shadow Legion. And with that, they did kind of diverge a little bit from the death metal format that Diabolic had. Instead of being straight up death metal in the Tampa style, we have some black metal riffing here and there that are reminiscent of bands like Hate Force. And then we also have some heavy metal influences there. Honestly, like if you take the heavy metal side of like Dissection, which I would say like the core of Dissection is, rooted in heavy metal with a lot of black metal aesthetics on top of it. That's kind of what Shadow Legion has too. It's like that's kind of the approach that they have with their take on heavy metal and making it darker and blacker and deathier. So the debut album is quite lengthy and starts out blistering, like death metal, black metal, but then it actually goes to a core of like heavy metalness. And with that, the vocals get a little softer in the heavy metal style rather than, death metal growling, screaming, and black metal vocals. And what emerges is what I tend to believe was should be called like dark metal. Serpent Ascending, they did explore a similar path with their 2022 album, Hyperborean Folklore. And I really think it's like a returning to your roots as a metal enjoyer, having that heavy metal influence in the band. Correct, Brian?
Yeah. We just kind of like to not put limitations and just let the creativity flow. And this is kind of what come out. It's pretty interesting. It wasn't an intentional thing. It was just kind of letting the creative flow come forth. And as it was progressing, we're like, wow, we're onto something a little bit different here. Hard to do. Metal's been around for a long time. We've all liked the various forms of metal that are out there. But really it was pretty organic how it came together.
So it wasn't deliberate. It's like, hey, I want to have traditional heavy metal sections in these songs. It just naturally came out.
Yeah. To go back a step to be a little more accurate, Dan Venturino, the bass player, I had moved almost 4 years ago back to Pittsburgh from Tampa. Dan and I have been friends forever. And he just made a comment, hey, let's jam. And I said, sure, yeah, let me get moved in and all that stuff, and maybe we'll jam. And then he had a little bit of a vision. He suggested, hey, let's jam. He's like, I don't know, man, maybe we can do some vocals like Forbidden or something. We can find somebody like that. Again, that'd be interesting. Lots of blast beats with some clean vocals. That's kind of an interesting theory. And so I just had my two guitars at that point. So I bought an amp and we started jamming, collaborating on some things, and it was starting to be pretty interesting right away. And I'd never really written with clean vocals in mind, so I was leaving some space for melody. And there was a little bit of, I wouldn't say intention, but it was in my mind that, okay, we're kind of going to have some clean vocals involved with this. So I wanted the music to stand strong and support that. And then as we're working on this, Dan introduces, he's like, hey, I know a guy. He's pretty good. His name's Kyle Healy. Kyle come over. We played some jams for him. He instantly liked it. And we gave him an arrangement to work with. And he came back in a week with lyrics and melody lines. And yeah, I was like, whoa, we got three different voices going on here in the song. We have a death metal voice, a black metal voice, and some cleans. And he has a really unique clean style. It's different. It's not, Jeff Tate or Halford screaming. It's pretty unique. So I said, this is kind of cool. So we just proceeded and carried on with it that way. And yeah, Kyle's an amazing addition because he pretty much, just takes the lyrically and vocally, he fits like a glove to the music. It's just a really good writing relationship. I'm very, very happy with the outcome.
Yeah. I'm not typically into like traditional heavy metal, or I'm not even in like I came into extreme metal later than most people. I mean, I was super young. I was 10 years old, but back when I was 10, I bypassed a lot of the classics and went straight to death metal. And black metal came when I was a teenager and all that. But so I never got fully entrenched into like appreciating just straight up like King Diamond and things of that nature. But I do love extreme metal and you're figuring it. But what I heard with the Shadow Legion album, you're talking about how diversified the vocals are, which they are very diverse. It's very interesting experience, and it really does paint a great narrative too, because you have these fluctuation of vocalizations. Plus, you can understand what is being said, so they are articulating the words very clearly. Where so, oh wow, that's cool. So yeah, shadows are part of our existence. We are part of the shadows, and it is part of us, because we cast shadows. And it's like, oh, those cool little lines. They're able to actually understand things, and but the clean vocals, they never become like way flamboyant like you find in power metal, or even like Halford, like you said, like he goes with those crazy highs, and it's rather restrained. So people who may not be into clean heavy metal vocals, they may be able to withstand some of the clean vocals on this, because they are restrained in the ranges. It's not going all over the place, and it becomes into an opera or anything like that. So yeah, the vocals definitely is. I put it on and I heard the first track and I was like, okay, this Brian's back in form. He's doing extreme metal, but then the track after that is like, oh wow, like this is not what I really expected. But that's what I really love about listening to new music coming out, is not being spoon fed the same thing over and over and over. You're going to have a genuine unique experience while checking it out. And not to mention you've been in the game for a very, very long time. You had Diabolic, and you had Omniety for a bit with the 4-song demo that came out, and which I love a great deal. I actually posted that on YouTube because I didn't see it there anywhere. But so I became really familiarized with the types of riffs that you create, and they're always really well thought out, well executed. and you let them sit there for quite a while. And you did this even back in Diabolic, even early Diabolic, where you let the songs have a lot of space essentially to have different types of vocals go on them, and just present like a narrative experience rather than like a Deicide Legion, which is fast repetition, and then boom, you're on to the next riff, and then boom, next riff, boom, next riff. You let the riff sit there for quite a while so we can absorb it. So is that intentional or just natural to you when you're writing songs?
A bit natural. There's a place for both, you know. There's times where you get in and get out. It really is just what the song dictates, like what the song needs and calls for. And you, as during the writing process, you write things out. You don't know how the vocals are going to set, until they exist. And then, yeah, we can cut this part down. We can add another line here if we need it. We kind of just massage it to get it to where we need it and where it feels natural. Most of it is feeling like, yeah, this I want this riff to say, to introduce itself, and then, like you said, let it sit and be absorbed. It's just, yeah, it's more of a feeling of how it goes, and then the vocals would dictate the rest of the arrangement.
I see, and we're kind of skipping across. The main thing that really stands out to me, of course, how buried the album is. But honestly, there's like a riff in there that I swear it could have been like a Hate Forest riff. Some of the most abrasive black metal out there, and then but what we've kind of skipped around, we didn't really get to yet, is the lead guitar work. Holy shit, man! Like, I've always loved your guitar work. When you're doing solos, and that's what I loved most about Diabolic, and of course Omniety. You had Belial you were jamming with in Omniety, and you guys would trade solos. Like, you do a solo, then he would come after you do a solo, then you would do another solo, then he would do another solo, and that is here. And some of it seems like even more refined, like on the first song. It really seems like like one of the best solos you've ever written. That does rival like the mastery of Trey Asgoth. Like right up there at the top supreme level of extreme metal is where you're able to find like these types of solos that are put in there that are like a microcosm of the song. Like they're you have your song, with all the riffs in it, and then you have a solo, which is like a song within itself with how it unfolds and develops and all that. And your solos are there for quite a while, so we're able to hear it, how it comes out and develops, and we're able to see exactly, it's like, oh wow, that was very wonderful, with how expansive the expression was. So honestly, like, how the fuck did you get so good at guitar, Brian? Just to be blunt.
Well, yeah, thanks first off for the great words, and the honor being compared to Trey. The guitar work and the creativity that comes with it. Yeah, this time around, I really, in the past, there's a lot of chaos and fun and whammy bar and dive bombs and all kinds of stuff. And there's a place for that, and there may be a place again. But it's just, I really, music's an expression, and you just want to express the emotions involved. So you get your head in the right place. Everything's shut out. You're just in creative mode, and you're just, in the big picture of the song, you're thinking, okay, what can contribute here? Not just to fill space, but to communicate, to say something. So I don't know. I never really want to figure out the science of music creation. I just want to let the magic flow. Magic is just science that hasn't been proven yet. So I've talked to other musicians who are, theoretical masters and classically trained, and that's great, and that's awesome. They have this vocabulary and knowledge. But yeah, and I never really, did any of that. I'm self-taught. I don't know if I'd be better because of it or not, but all I know is I got I'm working with what I have. And I don't know that I want to figure it out at this point. I just want to, let the energy flow.
I see. So no theory. That's interesting. Like Trey Asgoth, I don't believe he was ever trained in theory either. He just naturally picked up a guitar and became very intuitive for him just to play the way he does, and has a, I guess he would have like an intuitive type of theory, not, like academic or anything like that, just what works with what and what he's trying to express. And he intuitively knows how to, approach that. And I would say the same about you 100%. So it's more like beyond, the classroom. It's more just like part, gut bacteria, and it's like how it feels and all that. And, beyond thinking like, okay, we have to do circle fifths and things of this nature. But it's really interesting you're not actually schooled in music theory, because I think some of the solos, like even without the riffs and drums and all that behind them, they would sound good in isolation, like just by themselves. Like, you have like Trey Esgoth on, I think it was Formulas Fails to the Flesh, where he released like the Love of Lava stuff, where it was just random guitar solos. And I think you could do the same with some of your
Wow.
solos, like just release them as bonus tracks all on their own, because they stand on their own. I mean, they're wonderful. And the way you're able to pick up the tempo and the cadence with the riffs underneath them is just really wonderful, of how you're able to capture, the expression that you're trying to convey, and very masterful display of virtuosity. And this wonderful listening experience. And everyone listening to this podcast needs to check out the Shadow Illusion, which it came out on the 9th, right, Brian?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it came out just brand new. It's on Spotify, YouTube, and all that, and just check it out. Of course, there's going to be snobs out there who may hate, that there's like heavy metal vocals or things of that in there. But like I said, it's rather restrained, where it's not overbearing. So like the extreme metal purists say, oh, there's clean vocals, I can't listen to this. No, give it a try. The guitar work is amazing. The vocals, like, they're tastefully done. They're not going all over these crazy registers and just becomes a display of singing. It's not like that at all. It's very organic, like you said. That's a good descriptor for it. And the riffs are there for quite a while, so I think it's really accessible in general, because like you said, people can absorb the riffs because they are extant for, prolonged periods. So it's really great that, I'm able to talk about the lead guitars a little bit. And it's one of the reasons I believe you're one of the best guitarists out there in extreme metal, is because of the solos. Like, holy shit. Like, and because it's coming from an intuitive place, and it just makes it even more better. So you're not there cognitively thinking, it's like, okay, I played this note, now I have to go up here and play that note. Like Yngwie, even Ralph Santola, I would say, did it like that, where it was all brain and little soul, essentially, if that makes sense.
Mm. Yeah, that's an academic approach to it. Though, listen, there's a lot of different styles of guitars. There's a lot of different methods and how to get there, and there's a lot of amazing shredders. I just focus on what I can do, how the best I can do. How can I serve the song? How can I do the best in this moment? But thank you for all that. That's it's it's an honor to hear that. It's there's a lot of work goes into things, and yeah, it's nice when people enjoy it, and they enjoy it at the level that you are. So the album and I agree with the vocals too. It's not over the top. It's not too much, and it's dynamic. Like, and that's a good description for the album. I wanted to make sure I sent you a download of the whole album, because the body of work is pretty diverse. It's pretty dynamic, but it is one band, and that's a little hard to pull off, to offer a lot of different offerings rather than just sticking to a formula and just keep pumping it out. That's a little easier. I had done that in the past, and excuse me, and it's just much more interesting as a musician and a creative force to have some dimension, right? It's Diabolic was, I'm proud of the Diabolic years. We accomplished enough. Towards after the third album, we kind of got formulaic and a little bit two-dimensional, I was thinking.
I was
And
thinking that like Vengeance Ascending, that was like paint by numbers diabolic, you know. Is it okay that I said that? That doesn't hurt your feelings?
oh no, no, not at all.
But what I thought was really interesting is Infinity Through Purification. And that album I don't believe received good reviews. But what I liked about that is a lot of the groove riffs were cut out and you did explore a lot more with different types of expressions. And I think even though the album is a little experimental, I think, you know, it is kind of correlated a little bit to that Shadow Legion where you are exploring all these, you know, different forms of extreme metal and, you know, heavy metal. But with the Infinity Through Purification, I definitely see like a lot of different influences coming out and, you know, just in like death metal, where I think if you would have kept Diabolic going a little bit, that could have been molded into like a brand new type of expression that's coming out. And I really do like that album. I would say it's honestly my favorite album by Diabolic because it is more daring. Supreme Evil has some good catchy songs, and I think people are just got really expecting Diabolic to be catchy. And by the time, you know, Vengeance Ascending came around, it was like the epitome of the catchiness. But with Infinity Through Purification, it's kind of like let's like remold the picture. Let's, you know, let's approach it with, you know, renewed vision and, you know, let's, you know, see what else we can do. I know you had Eric Hirschman from Hate Eternal at one point. He's also in Gigan. Gigan's his main band. He was part of that.
Yes.
Did he contribute a lot to?
Yes. And first, it was what you said of a departure. It was actually very intentional. I had reference to it. It's like, yeah, we got a little two-dimensional. We're getting a little stagnant here. And creatively, that was just getting boring. And even the new work we were working on, me and Antar jamming at the end there, was just a little bit stock. It was just like, here's a riff, here's a blast beat. I was like, there's not too much substance here. And I was kind of like, yeah, I don't know. And those are kind of throwaway riffs that I did hear later somewhere else, but that's another story. But back to Infinity, that was very intentional. It's like, okay, let's have let's write an album with some depth, you know, let's just break away from that formula. And Eric Hirschman, yeah, we wrote that album together. I think we even like kind of out the riffs. It was a 50-50 split. That was a total collaborative work. And we kept elements of Diabolic, of course, and my riffing style and songwriting and the arrangements, and was pretty happy with the end product. And then the reviews for that were even understandable. Like, whoa, this isn't Diabolic that we know. This is something completely different. So,
Well, I think you spoon fed, like with Vengeance Ascending, you spoon fed the public with groove riffs, and that's going to hit like the lowest common denominator, you know, type of metalhead. Whereas, oh yeah, that's catchy and groovy. Yeah, I could bang my head to that easily. But with Infinity Through Purification, you just came out and just like threw everything that was, you know, already established, you know, with the formula. And it's like, no, we're gonna fucking, you know, just shred and just, you know, be experimental with it, see what we can create. And there's parts on it. It's like, okay, this song sounds a little bit like Cannibal Corpse, or a little bit like even like Deeds of Flesh, like the closer sounds a little bit like Deeds of Flesh. But there are, you know, a lot of different like expressions going on in there, where it seems like you're a tree putting down new roots somewhere else. And it seems like, you know, some of the roots are being nurtured more than others with the soil and with that, like some of them, like Vengeance Ascending was complete, like, you know, just groove oriented album. At least in my opinion, it's like that's just the Diabolic formula. It's not bad in itself, but I do feel like, you know, that's just really like for the common denominator of the metalhead. But Vengeance or Infinity Through Purification, that seems like it was trying to be something. And with that, I think if the band kept going, I think a new type of expression could have come out, which would have been, completely its own type of expression. It's not referencing any other bands or sounding like any other bands or sticking to a specific formula. But anyway, like I was contrasting that with the Shadow Legion, and I kind of see the same happening with the Shadow Legion, where you do have all these influences from all over the place, from extreme metal to heavy metal. And the thing about it is like your guitar riffing and songwriting skills are so great that you're able to pull it all off. Like most musicians they usually stick to one subgenre because that's what they know, and they really can't do much else outside of that. But so with the Shadow Legion, not only do you get phenomenal leads that are up there with Trey, in my opinion. Like I have a trinity in my head. It's the Tampa Trinity back when he lived in Tampa was you, Brian Malone, Trey Asgoff, and Jarrett Pritchard. You guys were like the trinity of death metal riffers and lead guitarists for me.
Well, thank you.
And I know we hung out, quite a bit, right after I got out of the Air Force, but it was always like I felt honored to be in your presence. Like I love, extreme metal, and being around one of the most talented guys in it was really a great experience. And being in, I christened your jam room. I remember I went to Omniity practice and I spilled beer. And
Yeah, that's
I
right.
was so like, oh my God, they're gonna hate me. And like, no, you're just like, thank you for christening our room, Jason. I'm like, but
Yeah.
but uh but anyway, the Trinity, at least in my like intuitive, like really phenomenal guitarist. You're in that Trinity that I had back then. Now that you're up in Pittsburgh, I don't know if I can say that anymore, but maybe I have to find a new Tampa guy and say, okay, who's in your Brian Malone? But yeah, I felt really privileged back then just being around you and all that. And of course Belial and the other guys on the 80 were great too. But I always kind of viewed you as a little bit higher with the virtuosity. But going back to the Shadow Legion, and all these different elements are on display from all these different subgenres, and it's all done so well that everyone should check it out. It's a really great listen. So you want to talk a little bit about Omniity, what happened with that band? Like there is a 4-song demo that I think it's really
Sure.
cool. And actually, I did have a question about Shadow Legion first before we go to Omniity. Why did you decide to do an album rather than a demo? Like I know you're self-releasing the debut album, but why didn't you try for a record label with a demo or anything like that?
Well, these songs happened relatively quickly. Once the floodgates were open, all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, we got 8 songs here, and we just kept writing. And then it was like, well, yeah, here's another one. This one's really cool. And then it was like, wow, we got another one here too. So I just have a full album's worth of music, and it was like, wow, these are these songs at this time. I didn't want to have separate releases. They were kind of written in the same time frame. And I think it was wise to release them all at once, because it's hard to tell the story of what we're doing with 3 songs because of the variety and the dynamic journey that we're portraying. So it was more just like decisions in real time. Like, okay, well, here's all these songs. They're done. Let's record them and get them out there. And these days with technology and the recording capabilities, it's not like you need a major budget from a record label. Though I look forward to having better production in the future. I'm happy with what we did. Everything's great, and I think it sounds pretty powerful and representative. But there's always room to improve for anything. I always want to keep progressing in that factor. So yeah, it was just that the songs existed, and I think they go together. Like, to answer your question in the short form.
I see. It's interesting. And so you're self-releasing it, so that means it's all DIY essentially. that it's all coming out, you're doing everything yourself. Are you don't feel jaded with record labels or anything like that? That's why you didn't try to go for a label. It's just that you thought that there was so much content, such varied content that you thought it's like better release it all so people could have a broader understanding of the band rather than a couple snippets. Is that it?
Yeah, it's more about the music and uh, than a business strategy. Not jaded with labels. Um, obviously they have huge marketing power to push things and get them out there. And I'm not against working with labels, um, you know, with discussions. And we threw it out there for a few and just a couple of things. And we just got to get to work. We're shifting to, can you hear me better now?
Yes. So the three songs.
Okay. Yeah. The three songs that I kind of had put out there, uh, for industry review and checking us out an introduction. Um, Even with you, I said, yeah, let me send you the full album because you really got to listen to the whole body of work to get what we're doing. It's hard to represent what we're doing in just three songs. So all those factors come into play. I think to tell the story properly, it was just had to be released as a full length.
I see. So you completely bypass, like the power of record labels and deep pockets and marketing and all that, just to get out your what you think the album, represents. You didn't want to send like little snippets and all that. So it makes sense. I think you are, in a different type of league than most people who self-release their own music. I think you could be signed to a Century Media or Nuclear Blast or Season of Mist or something like that. But it sounds great that you're able to, get back into it and jam. And it doesn't seem like that's your priority. It's just overnight. It's like boom, you're on a big record label and you're doing scheduling tours and festivals and all that. It sounds like more just like doing what you love, not turning it into like a business machine or anything like that. So you had done some pretty substantial touring with Diabolic. What was your experiences like with that? Do you see yourself doing that ever again, like with Shadow Legion?
It's possible. We're definitely going to support the album. We're going to be booking some shows in the near vicinity, and as we get the machine rolling, yes, we will hit the bigger markets, and we're looking forward to playing many festivals. Um, and just like a record label, if the table's set properly, yeah, it's a consideration. If a touring opportunity comes up, yeah, it'll warrant discussion. And we're all loving the music, we're all feeling it. So nothing better for a musician than to get out there and deliver it in a live setting with this huge exchange of energy going back and forth with the fans and the musicians. So we're all, very excited about that. And yeah, and like I said, if the record labels talk to us and uh, want to join forces moving forward. Business is business, even in the sense of not going out of pocket and covering expenses just to deliver the music. The more support you get, the more you can do, and we want nothing more like to go jam and have live performance and perform this uh, to a group of people who will enjoy it, and we would certainly enjoy that. So as the snowball grows and proceeds and grinds on, there'll be more opportunities, and we're looking forward uh, to all of them, really.
Yeah, just to chime in on that about labels covering expenses. I mean, there are probably labels who would do that regardless. Um, but you have to get a competent label. Like you don't want a label, releasing your album with a like typos or the layout's wrong or not positioned correctly or stuff like
Yeah.
that. You want like someone who's actually competent at what they're doing, not, your micro little small labels, correct?
Yeah, yeah. It's also like, we have, with this album I just put together, we have recording, we have product, we have songwriting, composition, we have the product, we have manufacturing, we have graphic design, we have distribution. It's like we can, the rest is marketing. So yeah, for us to consider uh, a contract with a label, it's like any other business decision. You just look at it from many angles and you try to create a win-win situation for both the label and the band. And like I said, I'm not opposed to any of that. It's just at this moment, um, we want to get the music out there, and we want to get the technology's great. We want to get moving on the live performance front. We want to start creating the waves that we anticipate creating and having fun and enjoying delivering the music out there.
Yeah, I think there's, a great freedom with self-releasing your music. That means you can do whatever the hell you want and you're able to do that. But having, like you said, the marketing and all that of a pretty, decent label, that also works wonders too. I mean, that gets your music out to more people, that you're in getting reviews all over the place, more people are checking it out. And so when you do go out and play shows, there's, more people there. So having, you know, there's pros and cons to both sides. So you have the independent side where essentially free reign over what you want to do, and then you have the decent label side who they can do the marketing and all that, but they might try to dictate. Like, I've worked with some medium-sized labels, and they chime in on creative decisions, like with the presentation and all of that. And so you might have to compromise in some format with a decent record label, at least. Usually, it's in the type of vein or vibe that label's trying to go for, like their specific demographic of extreme metal. It could be, more abstract, avant-garde extreme metal, or, visceral, bestial war metal, or, whatever it may be. Like, they have their own niches, and with that, so they try to dictate, what comes to them that they're releasing to kind of fit within the mold that they've already established. So that's interesting. So with Diabolic, I think it's a great travesty that the band stopped and was reformed, but it wasn't really Diabolic when it reformed. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? What happened, like after Infinity through Purification, Diabolic has stopped, correct?
Yeah, we can talk some history. Um, yeah, so you're for timeline purposes, we had finished the European tour with Behemoth and Destroyer 666, and come back from there, and there was a pretty sizable rift with Antar, the drummer, um, and he's a unique guy, and he's not. We worked together for many years, so we figured it out. But he's not the easiest guy to work with. But we got a lot done, and we figured it out for many years. But mainly after um, that tour, it was just performance, it was just musical performance. Like, I was very frustrated of how it went in Europe. So that's when then we parted ways at that point. I said, I'm done working with you, um, and just moved on from that point. So Eric and I were writing the Infinity album, as we referenced earlier. We're bringing in musicians and things like that. And, we had a great guy from France, Gail Barthélemy. This guy sent us a demo from France and said, I can do it. And we worked really hard together. We put that album together. He recorded it. He did a great job, but he's in France. So there's some logistical issues there. And he had trouble with his visas, getting into work. There was just a lot of things coming towards the end. So I had made the decision that it just to put it to rest at that point. Infinity was a great album. It was a good album to end on. And so that's where it was. And then, soon as that was common knowledge, um, Antar clamored for the band name. And there was some drama about that, whatever. But after a couple of years, I just kind of let it go and, just kind of said, whatever, do what you want with it. Wasn't verbally said that way, but in my mind, it was just like, okay, at this point, whatever.
So Diabolic was ended,
Yes.
and I remember being in Tampa in 2006, and there was a little magazine being distributed called Rivet Rag, and with that, Antar, reformed Diabolic, and we got like these statements from you and Antar and all that, and essentially what my innocent eyes had seen was that you had declared the band dead, and with that you just wanted it to remain dead because you were the primary songwriter, and a guy who was kicked out of the band reformed it. So that made this new Diabolic, which was actually a really good musician. So I think Jesse Jolly was in it, and Jesse's been on this podcast. I love that guy. But he was in it. And Kelly from Unholy Ghost and all that, Pessimist.
Mm-hmm.
He was in it too. And so Antar, he rounded up the troops because the Diabolic name was a commercial successful name to have for a band. And I know like Antar, like he probably felt slighted being kicked out, but still it's like him reforming, like having a guy who was kicked out of your band reform the band after you declare, that's it, and you being the primary songwriter, that makes it fraudulent. That makes it illegit. I mean, that's stealing it essentially. But so I was curious about that, because I did look on Wikipedia and I saw that Antar and Kelly are two contributors to that Wikipedia page on Diabolic. And there's like the one of the biggest write-ups about a band I've ever seen on there to make it seem like they are legitimately having the band name. It's like, oh yes, we did this and this and this. Oh, the reviews were bad on Infinity Purification, so we brought the name back and we did it better. I, honestly, like I heard the reformation of Diabolic, the illegitimate version, and even though there is like, Kelly's a great guitarist, so you're not going to get anything like legitimately bad from him, but it does not have like there's something special to you as a songwriter where it is very intuitive. It's just not like I get like the color by numbers, extreme metal from Kelly. That's how I perceive a lot of his stuff, and especially that new Pessimist. He posted some like new songs that he was working on, and it was like the most cookie cutter stuff I've ever heard. But I'm not going to go there. But there were, it just did not seem like anything really special. It was just like extreme metal by the numbers, and
Well, that's kind of where I went. Like time will tell, time will just tell with that scenario. Like to be accurate, the songs written in Antar had a lot of involvement with the writing and the arrangement. We would riff out, and the beats would come, and we would arrange it together. And there was definitely a guidance and a of the direction. And there was, lots of debates on what we can do and should do. But that's okay. That's part of being in a band and working with creative people. So there's, there's some ideas and there's other ideas. And I just thought time would tell at the point, like, okay, there's a clear delineation of this era of that band and this era of that band. And yeah, you can plug and play a lot of great musicians in there. To be completely accurate, Antar's one that came up with the name. And that was some of his claim was like, well, I named the band, I should have the name. It's like, well, a name is just a word until the work and the energy goes into it to make that name worth something. So the value of the Diabolic name was worth something after a lot of work and many years and a lot of energy input. And not saying he didn't have some of that as well, but it was just bigger than, well, I named it, I should take that name. And of course, you hit the nail on the head. There was a very good commercial value to that name. And, I just kind of thought legacy, just leave it lay. It's, yes, the Infinity album was a departure, an intentional one. And that is even understandable. Like, whoa, I didn't expect this. This is not what I wanted to hear from Diabolic. I wanted to hear this one. Excuse me. And so I get it. And I say, okay. And there's a lot of other factors involved at that time when we put it to rest. And I said, okay, cool. There's a legacy of that. And yeah, at first I was angry, like, no, I don't want to ruin that legacy. We actually did some good stuff. I don't want you to, somebody told me, Brian, why don't you just let it go? I said, well, sure. But, he's like, I know, it's like your dog died and you buried it. And I said, yeah, now somebody's digging up the bones of my dog and putting strings on it and puppeting it around. And, I was very angry back then about it. I'm way over it now at this point. That's kind of history. And, do what you want. But the circle back to the thought is like, yeah, time will tell. And there's a clear difference from the different eras of that band.
I don't know if time will tell if there's a deliberate effort to make it seem like it is a super authentic reformation of the band.
Well,
Wikipedia, I mean, they've deliberately edited that to make themselves seem authentic, that the band with them is 100% authentic and that you were putting the band into the ground and all this and that they brought it back to life, when in reality, anyone with discernible ears can hear the differences, like you said. But when there's misinformation out there like that, it just kind of distorts the picture, and what you have is like a circus mirror interpretation of what actually transpired. And so I did want to talk about that on the podcast, because I know this is old shit that we're digging up from 2006, but I always felt that you were wronged in that regard. And I wanted to set the record straight. To all 5 of you listeners out there who's maybe never even heard of Diabolic, this is what happened with the band back then. But yeah, just to set the record straight a little bit. I know if this makes us rounds, which it could, that it could come back and bite us in the ass. Just like people who are trying to continue that Diabolic name. But honestly, I'm too old. I have gray hair now in my beard. Like, come on, man. I'm gonna do the Joe Biden. Come on, man.
Yeah, I've been way over that for a long time, and I see, Antar can grab some musicians and they can play a show here and there and do their thing, and it doesn't bother me. I've been way over it, and I took a break and kind of very reclusive for some years, and just took a break and got away from that. It was very negative at the end. There's a lot of energy, a lot of bad energy with that. So I removed myself, and coming back to this, there was a point where I was like, okay, well, I'm done with that. And a really good friend of mine moved from Pittsburgh to Tampa named Bilal Koblak.
Yep, Bilal's been on this podcast. Plus, I was roommates with Bilal at one point.
Yes, he's there, and he's like, let's jam. And I said, sure. So this is post Diabolic. I'm still down in Florida, and that's what turned into us just jamming and writing music. He's a great guitarist. I was excited to work with him. He's very, very good guitarist, and we work so well together. I had no idea, because we have really different personalities, and you never know what's going to happen. But it was very cool, and we were writing the songs. And Pat Butcher came down from Pittsburgh, another old friend of Bilal's. He worked with in Lethal Prayer, and he moved on and joined. Like, man, he's a great bass player and vocalist. And then all of a sudden, Diabolic's old drum tech was in town, and I was like, wow, he's a killer drummer all of a sudden. He's been playing for these years. So yeah, Omnidi just kind of happened. It was a group of friends. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't as business. It was just, let's just write music, rehearsed it, and we played some shows live and put out the EP. And that was great. That was a good experience. I enjoyed what we did. I think we did some good quality stuff. Towards the end of that, to answer a question you may have not even asked, but a couple things happened. Bilal got the uh, opportunity to work with Nocturnus AD, and we were like, "Yeah, man, go for that." And at the same time, I was uh, shifting jobs and schedules were getting crazy, and I was a little bit still not. Um, I don't know if healed's the word, but over the scene and over um, that negative impression I had towards the end of the Diabolic years. I was a little burnt out, just say. And it just kind of naturally ended on a good note. I asked the guys, "Do you want to record the other songs we did to get them out there?" And it just kind of like, "Nah, we'll just do this, we'll do that." And it wasn't that. It was all casual. It was like, okay, cool. We're all good friends. Everybody's friends, and it's all good. But it was a cool experience. I really like working with Bilal as a guitarist. He's a killer.
Yeah, Bilal's an interesting personality. If anyone's ever met him, which probably a lot of you have because he makes his rounds, but yeah, definitely like for a while there, he was nicknamed Beer Lyle because of how much he put down. And yeah, very interesting guy. Great friend of mine and yours as well. And uh yeah, great things to say about him. And I still receive texts from him like just random memes and stuff like every other day. And it's like, okay, yeah, yeah, I see that. Yep. And yeah, great guy. And Omnidi was cool as hell. Like I thought, honestly, it was, a great departure musically from Diabolic. It sounded nothing like Diabolic, but it did have your leads, and your leads are very distinctive. So it was great to hear your leads over a different type of format, and I would say it was like more traditional underground death metal sound that was going on there, and uh, it's a great leads on top of it. You and Bilal treading them both, so it was great to hear that. And seeing it in
Yeah,
rehearsal,
that was
I think I went to like 4 or 5 rehearsals. It was always cool to hang out with you guys and drink beer and all that. And then that was right after I got out of the military too. So I was like hungry, hungry, hungry for metal, metal, metal. And like that was, I went to Clearwater. Ralph Sanchola wanted to work with me before he died and all this, stuff. And then I decided, hey, move back to Texas. My home is there. So that's why I'm back in
yeah,
Texas. So,
yeah.
but
The
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, to trading lead with Bilal was a lot of fun. Trading leads. He has his own style, I have my own style, and I agree that it was pretty interesting. Um, yeah, that was a good time. It was a good time.
Yeah, I kind of see not like the omnity riffing or anything like that, but I can see like the spirit is there. Because the excitement to just jam out and have fun and just great metal is there in that Shadow Legion too. Um, Especially like you're not far removed from Lethal Prayer. It seems like Omnity had a Lethal Prayer guy or two guys from Lethal Prayer, and Shadow Legion has a guy from Lethal Prayer. So that seems to be still in your circle, which is cool. And all those guys, if you're playing in Lethal Prayer, you're very talented. But
Yes,
yeah, I kind of feel like you put how diversified the album is, and it sounds like you're having fun with it. I mean, it me knowing you personally, that's what it sounds like. Other people is like, oh, this is just really diversified extreme metal, but me knowing you, I can tell you're having fun with it, and especially now that you actually are trying to get online presence to promote it and share it around a little bit. It's like I think you're having fun with it too, correct?
absolutely. Yeah, that's the big difference now is that where Diabolic had its magic moments, and we did a lot of cool stuff, and we earned it. We worked hard, and there's always struggles within bands and relationships and things like that. But overall, we did some cool things, and we should all be proud of that. Omni was a fun project for its time. And then I took a long break. Eric Hirschman said, yeah, you got like, I don't know, 12, 15 years worth of creative energy built up in your body and it's just pouring out. And he's right. He's right. Like I said, when I open the floodgates, here it comes. I'm excited. I'm excited about every riff. I'm excited about every arrangement. And it's very cool that, you know, that's one thing. And then Kyle comes in with his vocals and his we work so well together on these writing these songs with his lyrics and melody lines. And like I mentioned earlier, it's like, wow, that's another facet on the diamond. You know, that's not me, that's him. He brings a lot to this. And Dan's an amazing bass player, very heavy. I can't wait to take this live. And on that note, the Alex Cohn's an amazing drummer. He was a session drummer for the album. And then at that point, it was like, wow, it's kind of a project. We can fly him in and do some shows here and there. And we have a drummer that can do that, but he's a busy guy. He's a professional musician writing books and really an amazing drummer. And he just lives in the world of drums. And I was like, okay, well, as things progress, Dan, our bass player, somehow, I wouldn't say miraculously, but we found a drummer local who has the chops and who we now have a local drummer that's a permanent member of the band, Matt Hoyer. So now we have the ability to play many shows and take this out, and he will be a member of the band henceforth. He's feeling the music. He's loving it. He's doing an amazing job. So, yeah, we look forward to taking this live. We're just about there. Actually, not confirmed yet, but we're working on shows and like literally any day here we can have our first show booked and announced. So there'll be some announcements coming on that. I'm trying to hold back and not tell you who it's with yet, but we're putting some cool stuff together.
You can tell me offline. I had a question. You labeled the music as dark metal, extreme dark metal. What is your interpretation of dark metal?
Well, I really was just pulling adjectives out that I thought described what we were doing, less than defining a genre that way. It's extreme, it's dark, can't say it's death because it's not straight up death metal. Can't say it's black because it's not straight up black metal. Say black and death with clean vocals. I just thought that it's extreme, it's dark, it's extreme dark metal. Because that's just a sense of it's a theme from beginning to end of the album. There is an all-encompassing darkness to it. So coming from the dark side as we do, that's just kind of what happened. So I don't know that, like, you listen to many different things and you're involved and you do podcasts and you're much more involved in the industry, the scene, whatever, than I am. You're more qualified to determine what that would mean than I do. Was pretty much just describing what we're doing and not really, because I always said, what are they going to call us? I really don't care. Let's just do what we do. Let's be creative and do our thing and, try not to pigeonhole ourselves with labels, but not be a band that has 10 different songs that sound like 10 different bands either. But so, yeah, to answer your question, I don't know. Dark metal, if it's obviously it's, a lot of minor scales and modes and keys, I guess. It just has to have a sense of darkness to it.
I see. So what I kind of gleaned from dark metal, which there's that band Eternus from Norway. They play, I wouldn't say it's similar at all. It's very different, but the elements of death metal, black metal, heavy metal are there. And then you also have a band, Serpent Ascending, which I mentioned before, with the Hyperborean folklore. He's going into his influences just as a metalhead and digging up all the heavy metal influence that was there, and he was able to present it. He's not as crazy on the guitar as you are, but he's very thoughtful. And he presented essentially black and death metal, heavy metal album. Like the core we can tell is heavy metal, and very beautiful in some parts. But so what I kind of gleaned is something that people kind of intuitively on a level think it's like, okay, let's go back to our roots of a metal enjoyer, just being drawn to metal and heavy metal being a part of that, while also including aspects of death and black metal. And with all the bands that I've just mentioned, there's Mephitis, which I think they're an outlier of the dark metal category, but um, what all the bands have in common is that there are epic aspects to the music as well as like paganish. Like you have references to Valhalla and all that, so that's pagan. Serpent Ascending, Hyperborean folklore. There you go, that's pagan all in itself. And Eternus is all pagan and shit. So those are what I was able to stitch together of the dark metal moniker. It's just like what all the bands share. Even though all the bands sound way different, they share these elements, and I think there's a lot of room to grow there too. But I think what the driving force of it is being drawn to why you even love metal, and a lot of that is going back to heavy metal. So having a heavy metal influence in the sound. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Cool, cool, cool. So Brian Malone, anything else you want to say before we wrap up today?
Well, obviously, first, thank you. Totally appreciate having us. Super excited. We're very excited that the album's out and everybody gets to hear the music. That's what we want. We just want it enjoyed, and give it a try. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's cool. That's how the world works, and that's how music should be approached. Maybe you like some, you maybe don't like the other, but we're excited to take it out live. I think that's another level of Shadow Legion to be seen. It's going to be ferocious live. There's no doubt about that. And yeah, thanks for having us and thanks for supporting it.
Oh, hey, yeah, I'll be there all along the way. I'll be on your journey with you, just seeing everything that's happening and hoping for the best for you guys. I think you guys truly deserve to get some major recognition. So I'll be monitoring what has transpired with the band here and there. So great to have you on board. And I'm sorry that Shelly is not on the episode today. His baby did act up, and he would have joined if he didn't have those newfound responsibilities of being a dad. But I do apologize to the listeners out there who wanted to hear Shelly today. He will be back later, of course. We plan on a whole bunch more Necropolis episodes, and now that things have smoothed out on my end, we'll probably be a little bit more steady of episodes. So I do want to thank Brian Malone, and I do want to thank you for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.